How to build resilience and defeat stress. Welcome back to the Path to Purpose podcast with Dr. Katja Rusanen. In today's episode, we are exploring how to build resilience, and you'll discover two powerful energy medicine techniques to defeat stress. I'm excited to introduce our guest, Carolyn Pitts, who is a health coach certified by the American Council of Exercise, an ACE behavior change specialist, and healing touch professional. She's a member of American College of Lifestyle Medicine and the Healing Touch Professional Association. Her book, Eight Intentions for Self-Healing, takes a reader on an interactive journey to intentional well-being through a blend of lifestyle and energy medicine. So welcome, Carolyn. I'm super excited to have you here.
I'm super excited to be here, Katja. Thank you so much for the invitation.
You are very welcome. And I'd love to hear a little bit of your background. Was there a special event that led you to do what you do today?
Well, thank you, Katja. That is a thought-provoking question. And it wasn't like there was one big event that got me on my path. And it's been more like a series of serendipities. I think about like a rose blooming, opening up petal by petal by petal. And I'll give you three examples of some of the fun that I have had on this journey. The first is about 6 years ago. I decided that I wanted to learn about energy medicine. And I was particularly interested in learning about healing touch, which is a biofield therapy modality that was developed by a nurse, and it's taught in nursing schools and it's used in hospitals worldwide. It's sort of like Reiki, but the structure of it really appealed to me. So I was looking for a class, a level 1 class, and there wasn't any in my area. It looked like I was going to have to travel out of state to take a class. So while I was trying to figure out where to go and book the flight and figure out the hotel, I had a random chance encounter with someone. This woman that I met, and we were having this wonderful conversation. And it got to the point where I was asking her what she did, and it turns out that for the past 20 years, she had been a healing touch practitioner. And she knew of a class that was going to be in our area. For some reason, it hadn't made it on the website. It was coming up in a week, and I got in the level 1 class, and I didn't have to travel. Another example would be 3 years ago. I'd been practicing healing touch for a while. I'd gotten up to level 4, which is the healing touch professional. I was working with clients, but I had this realization that working with people one-on-one, I'd only be able to serve so many people. And so I asked for some guidance. How can I expand my reach? I was thinking, maybe I should do group coaching, or maybe I should teach a class. Well, the guidance I got was to write a book. And I laughed out loud because I'm not a writer. I've never written a book or aspired to write a book. And I think I even said out loud, how does one write and publish a book? Well, not long after that, I got an email from Hay House Publishing telling me that they were starting a class to teach people how to write and publish books. And it was only because I'd gotten that guidance. I said, well, I guess I'm supposed to take this class. And I learned how to write and publish a book. And that led to my book, The 8 Intentions for Self-Healing. And then the third story I want to share with you happened just a few weeks ago. I was talking to my daughter, and I said, I think I'd like to try being on a podcast. And that was on a Saturday. And it was Monday, Katja, that you reached out to me and invited me to be on Path to Purpose. So
Oh my.
petals just the petals keep opening. So it's just been so much fun. And I think the thing I've learned is when the opportunity presents itself, you say yes. You might be scared, you might be intimidated, you might be unsure. I'm like, how do I write? I don't know how to write. You just say yes.
That is such a powerful message right there because it is the doors will open, and you seem to be a very powerful manifester because I felt called to reach out when I saw your book in the community of Hay House, and I was like, I'd love to have a conversation with her because it seems the message that you want to share with the world is so powerful and so needed at this time. Because we talk about resilience and a lot is happening right now, and the resilience is so needed. But I'd love to hear a little bit of your definition. What do you mean when you say resilience?
That is a great question to start with because I think it means different things to different people. But for me, it brings to mind the image of a child's toy called a bop bag. I don't know if you know what that is. I've got a picture here I can share with you. Uh, these toys that kids have, they're inflatable and they're weighted at the bottom, and the kid punches it and it falls back and then it springs back up right again because we can't avoid life knocking us sideways. That's going to happen. You can't like just be rigid and try to dig yourself in and not move. You're going to move and flow with life. That's how things are. But resilience is all about training ourselves so that when life knocks us sideways, we just bounce back up. Kind of like a tree blowing in the wind. The wind blows us and then we come back.
How do we do that? Like, do you have on your own life experience, how do we build that resilience that we can bounce back when life happens and when life hits those curveballs and we have those moments like we are knocked down? How do we build that resilience that we can bounce back?
Well, I think there's a couple of ways to do that, Katja, and a lot of them come back to our lifestyle. So one thing I would mention would be nutrition and eating well. I personally follow a whole food plant-based diet. I know that doesn't work for everyone, but becoming more intentional about what we put into our bodies helps us with building resilience. I think exercise is really important. You mentioned earlier, you've been to the gym earlier today. I think having movement in our life is really important. Getting good restorative sleep. And I think sometimes we may not even realize how poor our sleep is until we start to build resilience and we start to improve our sleep. And avoiding toxins, so things like nicotine, alcohol, being very cognizant of what we put on our body and in our body. But the number one thing, I think the starting point for building resilience is learning how to work with stress, understanding what is stress in our body and ways that we can cultivate resilience to it by working with our stress.
That's super interesting because you said that's the number one thing, and like learning how to manage stress. Why do you feel it's so important?
Well, because if we have a lot of stress in our lives, nothing else is going to really help. If I'm eating right and getting exercise, but I am at stress in a point of stress all the time, those things are only going to work but so well. And I think of stress as a silent killer. And I say silent because from my own personal journey, when I began learning energy medicine, all of my healing touch instructors told us you need to work on yourself first to be a healer for others. So I began using these techniques in my own life. And that's when I realized just how stressed I'd been. It was normal for me to carry a lot of tension in my shoulders. It was normal for me to have a lot of abdominal distress. It was normal for me to grind my teeth at night and have a lot of jaw pain. It was normal for me to be overweight. I didn't realize all of these things were symptoms of stress in my own life. And I say stress is a killer because it is associated with all of the non-communicable chronic diseases, whether we're talking about heart disease, like, heart attacks, strokes, high blood pressure, whether we're talking about neurological issues like dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, whether we're talking about metabolic issues like obesity and high blood sugar, diabetes, or whether we're talking about cancer, all of those conditions come back to a lifetime of stress.
Wow, that's so curious because sometimes we even don't recognize, like you said, you didn't even realize how stressed you were because we take it as a normal. And I've been there too. I used to work in banking and it was a lot for sometimes there were situations that were very, very stressful. And even now, like being an entrepreneur, there is moments of stress. So how can we then start taking care of ourselves? And before we go to ways to manage stress, I would just give an opportunity for if you're tuning in here, just check in. Sometimes it helps to check in and give an estimate where you are with the stress. 0, not stressed at all, and 10, being super stressed. So take a moment and just tune in, check in. Where are you? Because I think that little pause can just give you that awareness. And I believe awareness is a key that can set us free. So just wanted to give that pause for the audience to check in. Before now, like if you notice, maybe you're 5, maybe you are 8, maybe you are 10, or maybe you are totally relaxed, which would be great. But I think we all might have some number there. So, what are some ways then to manage stress? What can we
I
do?
agree with what you just said so much because I think being aware of it is really key. Our central nervous system basically has two modes, and people have heard of this before. They've heard of fight or flight. People talk about that a lot. But I don't know that people really understand by design what our body does when it perceives a threat. So, things that happen in our body, and this is autonomic, we can't control it, we can't stop it from happening. It's like that butt bag, you're going to get hit sideways sometimes. When our body perceives that we are under threat, and this can be from a wild animal chasing us, ancient humans, or an overflowing inbox, or traffic, or running late to an appointment, our body still responds the same way. It goes into fight or flight. And fight or flight is a good thing because it's part of our survival instinct and it's what was designed to keep us safe. That's why we're alive today. We are wired to survive. But fight or flight should be something we go into only when our lives are in danger, only when we're truly threatened. And the rest of the time, we should be in what's known as rest, digest, and heal. But what happens when we go into fight or flight? Our breathing accelerates, our heart rate accelerates. All of our energy goes to our arms and our legs. And this is so we can either run away or we can fight back. But where is that energy coming from? Our body takes energy from bodily functions like cellular growth and repair, like digestion. Because if a hungry lion is about to eat me, it doesn't matter whether I digest my last meal or not. If I survive, then I can go back to digesting my meal. But my digestion is impaired when I'm in fight or flight. My immune system stops functioning. If I had a cold virus, if I had a cut on my hand that was infected and my body was trying to heal that infection, if my body is scanning for precancerous cells that need to be destroyed, none of that matters if my life is at danger. So all of that stops as well. So anytime I'm in fight or flight, I'm not in rest, digest, and heal. My body's not restoring uh, the cells, it's not rebuilding my organs. All of those chemicals associated with fight or flight make it hard for me to sleep. And then there's repercussions from not sleeping well, which makes it hard to function the next day. And another thing that happens when we go into fight or flight is how our brain operates changes. Most of the time, when we're in rest, digest, and heal, we're using our prefrontal cortex. We're using these executive functions to make decisions, to learn. But when I'm in fight or flight, all of my functioning goes to my hindbrain, that primal part of my brain that goes way back in time, that functions from reflexes, because I can reflex faster than I can reason through something. So the thing about stress is it tends to build up. So I mentioned some things like Maybe I wake up late in the morning and I'm running to work, and then I hit every red light, and then I get to work and the boss yells at me, and this is just stress reaction upon stress reaction upon stress reaction. It just all piles up. And I'm never spending any time in rest, digest, and heal. And then I'm not sleeping well. I'm not digesting my food properly. People get cravings, especially cravings for sugar. It's because they're not getting the nutrients out of the food that they're eating because their digestion's impaired. They catch every cold that comes through the community. It's because their immune system's not functioning well. So all of these things tend to build up, and that's why I think stress is so associated with these non-communicable chronic diseases that I mentioned earlier.
It is super interesting to know what's really happening there within us. And then as we start managing this, are there some exercises? You have mentioned tapping. Could you kind of guide us through with the little exercise? What can we do if we notice, like, okay, I am in the mode that my stress level is high. So like, give us a tangible thing. What can we do there?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. There are so many techniques that I've learned through energy medicine, but there are two things that I would like to share with you. And everybody talks about breathing and how important breathing is. It really is powerful, and there are so many good breathing techniques. But I'd like to offer three tips for how we breathe when we detect that we are in fight or flight. And those three things have to do with, first of all, filling our lungs. Because I mentioned earlier, when we go into fight or flight, our breathing accelerates and we're not breathing very deeply. We're only breathing partially into our lungs. So a good full inhale, a lung full of air, helps our body recognize that it's safe and it's okay to relax and go back into rest, digest, and heal. We know we're inhaling all the way. If we put our hands over our belly and when we inhale, we feel our belly extend, then I know I'm inflating my lungs all the way and it's pushing the diaphragm down. So a good deep inhale is really important. The second thing is to hold the breath at the top. So inhale with your lungs full and then just pause for a few moments with your lungs full. And then when you exhale, you want an exhale that's longer than the inhale. So for example, if you were inhaling to maybe a 4 count, you want to exhale to 6 or even 8. All these things tell our brain it's okay. There's not a threat. And we can go back to rest, digest, and heal. The other thing that we mentioned is tapping. And there are a lot of different schools of tapping. I have a whole presentation where I talk about the evolution of tapping. Emotional freedom technique is the one that gets the most attention, and it's used in a lot of clinical settings, and it's the most widely researched. But it also requires using a script as you go through and do the tapping. So I like to use a simpler form of tapping called the trauma tapping technique, which was developed by the Peaceful Heart Network out of Sweden. So that's the technique that I want to share with you today. And before we get started, and Katja, you invited the audience to do this earlier, I'm going to tap in to how you're feeling and give your stress a number between 0 and 10. Just something to remember. And when we come back later, we can use that as a comparison to see if our energy has shifted any. And when we do the tapping, we can tap on something specific that's bothering us. So if there's something that's kind of bothering you, something in life that didn't go the way you wanted it to, or an interaction you had with someone that you just can't stop thinking about, you can hold that in your mind while you do the tapping. But we can also just do it just general anxiety tapping with no specific thing. Because like I mentioned earlier, all these little things can start to mound up. So maybe we just tap on general anxiety. When we tap, we're going to be tapping on different parts of our body with our fingertips, and we want to tap with firm, yet gentle pressure, enough to stimulate, but not enough to, we're not pounding on ourselves. And I'm going to guide you through 2 rounds of tapping, which is what is used in the trauma tapping technique. And we're going to start by tapping with 4 fingers on the side of one of our hands, and we're tapping between the bottom of the pinky and the top of the wrist. And while we do this tapping, I invite you to take a nice deep breath, letting your belly extend as your lungs fill, holding your breath for just a moment, and then letting it out very, very slowly. And then you can think this to yourself, or you can say this out loud. Even though my body is holding stress, I know it is just my survival instinct designed to keep me safe. Even though I feel this stress in my body, I am safe in this moment. Even though this stress is in my body, I choose to release it and return to rest, digest, and heal. Now we're going to switch to tapping some points on the face. There's 5 of them, and we're going to start with the inside of the eyebrow. I like to tap on both sides with 2 fingers. You can tap on one side or the other. It really doesn't matter. Take in a nice deep breath. Pause and let it out slowly. Slide your fingers across your eyebrow and tap at the side of the eye. Now we're tapping on the bone. You're doing it perfectly, Katja. That's exactly right. I just want to warn people, you're not tapping on your eye or that delicate eye tissue, but you're tapping on the bone. And next, we're going to slide our fingers down below our eye, and we're going to tap right below the middle of the eye. Take in a deep breath. Pause. And exhale slowly. The next point that we're going to tap on is right below the nose where it meets the face. Might be hard to use 2 fingers. I tend to use one right here, but we're tapping right there below the nose. Breathing deeply. And the 5th and final place on the face is below our lower lip. There's a little divot right there, right below your lower lip. Now we're going to move to points on the torso, starting with, people call it the collarbone, but it's actually below the collarbone. So if you identify where those bones are and you want to drop down just right below them, you can use 4 fingers again. Take in a deep breath, pause, and release it slowly. Now we're going to tap on the side of the torso, lifting up one arm, and we're tapping about 3 inches below our armpit. Breathing deeply. And next what we're going to do is we're going to tap on the hand. Now, a lot of tapping, EFT, goes to the top of the head. This technique does not use that. We're going to tap on all 4 fingers and the thumb, and we're tapping on the side of the finger right next to the base of the nail bed. Now, for me, sometimes tapping here can be a little uncomfortable. It can also be fine just to rub it or just put some pressure on it. Basically, we're just stimulating the meridians. So I start with the pinky, then the ring finger, middle finger, index finger, and thumb. Back to those points below the collarbone. Take in a deep breath. Hold and let it out slowly. Now stop tapping for just a moment and notice how you feel in your body. Take in a deep breath. Let it out slowly. One more. And exhale. And that was the first round. Now we're going to do that again. And you can tap on the other hand or the same hand. It doesn't matter. 4 fingers on the side of the hand between the base of the pinky and the wrist. 5 points on the face, starting with the inside of the eyebrow. Going across the eyebrow to the side of the eye. Take in a deep breath. Sliding down to below the eye. Below the nose. Below the lower lip. Collarbone. The side of the torso. The points on the hand, starting with the pinky finger. ring finger, middle finger, index finger, thumb. One last tap on the collarbone. And we can stop tapping and take in 2 deep breaths. And inhale, pause at the top, let it out slowly. And again, inhale, pause at the top, and let it out slowly. Oh, I feel so shifted. So this is where we think about the number that we chose at the beginning and see if it has changed.
That was beautiful. Thank you. I think we I needed that little break, a little refresh. And just want to check in, like, when are you recommending that we use these techniques?
Well, that's a great question. And there's actually 2 times. So everybody, I think, would automatically think, well, when I'm feeling stressed, that's when I should use it. And absolutely, that is true. And especially the intentional breathing, you can do that anywhere. You're stuck in traffic, you can do that. You're in a meeting that's not going the way you want it to go, you can do that. You're having a difficult conversation, you can breathe intentionally. But the thing that I really recommend is that it be part of our daily self-care. Because, like I mentioned before, stress mounds up. Just like grime mounds up on our skin. We take a shower on a regular basis. We wash our skin. We brush food particles from between our teeth. And we should also be clearing those fight or flight chemicals, clearing that reaction from our body every day, whether you're tapping or breathing around something specific or just general anxiety. But like I said earlier, Katja, when my healing touch instructors told me to use these techniques as part of my self-care because I needed to take care of myself before I could be a healer to anyone else, I'm like, why don't, and I had that transformation. I'm like, why does everybody not know this? This should be common knowledge. We should be teaching this to kids in school. Everybody should know how to build resilience.
That's just a beautiful way to put it. Like this should be common knowledge, but at the moment it is not. And therefore you have prepared something for the audience if they want to go deeper with you, if they want to learn more, because this is true. Sometimes we don't know these really quick tools and ways how we can shift what's happening inside and find that calm and build that resilience. So, can you share a little bit about the gift?
I would love to. I have put together a set of 10 techniques, including the breathing that we talked about and also the tapping, in this How to Build Resilience 10 Energy Medicine Techniques to Defeat Stress. It is a free ebook that is available to folks. And some of the things we talked about at the beginning, where we talked about what happens in our body by design when our body feels like it's under threat. I write about that in there as well. Oh, and there's a bonus at the end. There is a meditation for centering and grounding. And another thing I would mention, it can be a little tough to learn techniques from just reading them in a book. So there's also links to videos of each of the techniques. So you can just practice along with me, including the tapping that we did. That's a recording that you can access.
Oh, I love that because it's such a beautiful way to have the support companionship. Like, okay, put that video on, have that guidance, how to do the tapping around. Oh, you even can go back on this and just do it, have the support for you. So you might want to save this video and have the support. But like, please check out that beautiful, beautiful gift because there are 10 things to choose from. So if tapping wasn't for you, don't you worry. There is other things you can do because it is time now to build that resilience, feel better so that you can live your 5-star life here. And I just love that gift. So thank you for taking the time to put that together. And want to thank you, Carolyn, for your time today and all the tips that you have shared. And just as we wrap up here, I just want to check in if there is a final message that you would love to leave the audience with.
Thank you. Absolutely. Yes, there is a few thoughts that I have. First off, building resilience is intentional. So it's not something that's just going to happen. It's something we need to make time for, we need to commit to, but the benefits are so worth it. Like I'm telling you from my healing journey, I didn't realize how awful I felt until I started to build resilience and feel better myself. And then the other thing I would say is be patient with yourself because we're talking about lifestyle changes, whether you're looking at integrating these type of techniques into your daily self-care routine, whether you're looking at improving your diet, being more mindful of getting plenty of sleep, putting exercise into your life. All of these changes happen over time. Think of it more as evolution than revolution, because if you wake up tomorrow and you say, I'm going to do all these things from here on out, it's going to be really difficult to stick with that because biologically we are wired to stick to patterns of behavior, things that we know are safe. So give yourself time, pick a change, integrate it into your life, then pick another one. And be gracious with yourself and be patient with yourself and forgive yourself for backsliding because it happens to all of us.
Love it. It's so powerful. That sustainable change. Start doing this. I'm one of my spiritual teachers. He talks about microscopic changes, like doing one thing, adding on it, and it's easier for us to do. Even if you do that 1 minute breathing, like, okay, do you have 1 minute? Like, let's start with that. And I know some of us want to jump in, like, give me the 10 and great, but like do those microscopic action steps so that you will start noticing the shift as you keep going. So love the idea you have there, Carolyn, and thank you for sharing. And also noticing that, yeah, sometimes we slide back, but what we can do is to bounce back again and get
Exactly.
back on track. And with your support, with your help, and with those beautiful videos you have prepared, that's such a beautiful support. So thank you. Thank you so much for being a guest today.
Well, thank you, Katja, and thank you for doing this podcast and helping to share the message of health and healing to your audience and to everyone. Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this interview, please give it thumbs up and subscribe for more inspiring content and explore our previous episodes too. I'm sending you all so much love and light.